Be on the banner.
Yeah, it won't click over. I don't know what's going on. Well, there we go.
There we go.
So we'll start piling in here. Mr. Morrison himself. He's been doing some baits here lately.
He's been tying a lot of flies. He really got into that fly tying and stuff.
Yeah, he said it was going really good. So glad to see that.
I can tie some stuff. I can tie like the woolly boogers and the bigger streamers and stuff. But when it gets down to that really small, like size 16, size 18 crap, I can't do it. You ever tied any flies, Chad?
No.
No?
No, and it's probably a good thing.
It's tedious.
I've made a few crappie baits in my time. You know, I used to be into that. That was kind of part of the thing we did there in Southern Illinois, especially on Crab Orchard and some of those in Rend Lake. You know, we crappie fished a lot. And that was pretty much the extent of my structure fishing is crappie fishing, not bass fishing. Because if they didn't bite in less than 2 foot of water, I didn't catch them. You know, but crappie fishing, it was always deep stuff for whatever reason. And with the introduction of all of this new electronics with Garmin, Livescope, and everything, and then of course me moving to Table Rock, it's been an eye-opening experience.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure.
We had Sean Hurst on here last week, and he is the fisheries biologist for the IDNR from Jackson County and Rend Lake, and Crab Orchard and Rend Lake all came up, and they've all got really good populations of crappie. In fact, Rend Lake has just kind of been on fire the last couple of years.
Rend Lake is unreal. My dad still crappie fishes all the time. He's 74 years old, and he's 70. Yeah, he's 74 years old. He crappie fishes like all the time. He's really good at it. I mean, he has in the last 20 years really, really, really worked on it, and he fishes Rend, Kincaid, a lot of those strip pits over there in Pinckneyville. You know, it's crazy. But I haven't fished for crappie in a long time. Me and Dave Mansu went out here on Table Rock, and Table Rock's a different animal fishing for crappie. You know, it's so much deeper. It has so many cedar trees and brush piles and everything else. But yeah, he keeps me supplied in crappie. Let's just put it that way. My dad does.
Yeah, well, that's not a bad gig to have there.
No, and they're filleted and ready to go. They're frozen. I mean, how can you lose?
Yeah.
So let's say what's up to the folks that are in here. We got Cody is on there. Cody actually purchased a Tin Horse Monty T-shirt, and he got it today, and he made a nice little friendly
Mr. Cody right there.
Instagram post. Dave, I'm going fishing with Dave tomorrow. We're going to go to Marion City Reservoir, I think it's called. I've never been over there, but it was just recently purchased by a private individual, and they're supposed to be shutting it down to the public sometime. So I wanted to definitely get over there and do a video in my lesser known series. And Dave knows the lake really good. Yeah. The bad thing is we got rain tomorrow, and shooting video in the rain kind of sucks. But we're going to go over there and see what happens anyway. You know, make a day of it.
Gotcha.
Jay Beff is in here. Smallwater Charters. T Harris. BP Fishing. Todd Phelps. Doyle. We got some new faces in here. Some new names in here. Yeah.
That's good.
So,
what did you start on that?
Did you were you born in Carbondale or Southern Illinois area, or?
I was born in Pinckneyville, Illinois, is where I was actually born at, and I lived pretty much my whole life in Tamaroa, Illinois, which is just about 10 minutes from Pinckneyville, just east of there. Real small town. Of course, my high school, my graduating class, I think had 24 in it, so we were overpopulated, as you could probably tell. But I did. And then I moved to Carbondale whenever I was 23 years old. I got hired with the City of Carbondale Fire Department, and that's why I moved there. And I worked there for 13 years. And then from there on, actually, whenever I moved to Carbondale, that's whenever I started tournament fishing. And Crab Orchard and those lakes in that area, Kincaid, a lot of local stuff. Team tournaments, and it just kind of one thing led into another is what happened to me. And I actually qualified then for the top 150s whenever I was still living in Carbondale, and we moved back to Pinckneyville and built a small little house there because I knew I was going to be on the road all the time and traveling a lot. And that's pretty much where I come from. You know, Southern Illinois. I just have such a huge support group from Southern Illinois. It's amazing. I actually talk with probably one of my best friends in the entire world, Dennis Heap. We started the Pinckneyville High School fishing team together. Me, him, and Duke Jinkle started the Pinckneyville High School team before IHSA ever sanctioned it. And we still all stay in touch, and so I just said I can't say enough about Southern Illinois, man. What a tight knit group, and great people. And you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love it here in Missouri, but it was an interesting growing up and then learning how to fish those lakes in that area, because you know, anybody that's from Southern Illinois knows Rend Lake, Kincaid, Crab Orchard. It's all pretty much a shallow water lake. And the patterns there isn't as many patterns there as there are on tour. And I found that out quickly, even though I qualified for the top 150s traveling around fishing the opens. The experience that I got pretty much made me a shallow water power fisherman. And, you know, whenever it came to those type of events, I was fine with. I felt very, very comfortable, very much at home. But man, the deep water structure stuff, boy, when they moved off the bank, and anybody that's followed my career can tell, you know, is up until just a few years ago, you know, whenever it came post spawn time and that top water bite went away and the fry garters left, I struggled. And, you know, I struggled until the fall, until the fish got back shallow again and started following the bait and got up into that type of pattern. But I moved to Table Rock to hopefully correct that. And it was just basically to teach me to fish deep, fish structure, learn how the fish move in these deep reservoirs. And, you know, obviously clear water versus mostly dirty, shallow water. So it was definitely a learning curve. Because after the first top 150 event that I went to Florida for the first time in my life, I asked myself, what in the world have you done? You know, I mean, I had not a clue, dude. I tried my best at the very first top 150 to finish dead last, and I didn't miss it by much. I'm going to tell you that right now. But the flip side of that coin was just kind of quick on that. You know, when I started back in 2003, we went to the Harris Chain of Lakes in Florida, in Leesburg, Florida. And like I said, a cold front come in, and I had no clue how to catch a fish in a cold front in Florida at that time. Now that's changed, but me and my wife had a 3-year plan set. And that was that, you know, once I left the fire department, I left a pretty good salary and a dang good pension, and to go fish for a living, which was at that time, who knew, you know, I mean, the odds were not in my favor, to say the least. So anyway, after that disaster at Leesburg, we went immediately to Okeechobee, same cold front on us, you know, it just moved south. And I was like, oh my God, here we go again. Practice was horrible. Hell, I didn't catch 2 or 3 fish in practice the whole 3 days. I thought, well, here we go again. And Debbie's like, what have we done? I'm like, I have no idea, sweetheart, but I can't get my job back at the fire department. So we're in it for the long haul at this point. And just lo and behold, you know, things worked out, and all of the money that I had set aside. So I had 30 grand set aside to fish for 3 years. I used about $11,000 of that to prepare and to get in the first one. So we were way off course. It was not going good. And then all of a sudden at Okeechobee, it clicked and it turned around, and I finished 5th at that event, and I won all that plus some back for a 5th place finish. And I double qualified for the Classic that year. And, you know, I kind of just fell in love with the state of Florida. And, man, to date, I think I've won a little over $600,000 in my career in the state of Florida alone. So I can't complain about that at all. So the shallow water power fishing thing obviously shows up again. Learning to fish in Southern Illinois shows up in Florida. A lot of these guys that are just absolute deep water structure gurus, Kentucky Lake, Barkley Lake, all of those things across the nation. They struggle in Florida. There isn't any contour lines, and I don't care. I mean, I fished up in Crab Orchard, like I said, 2 feet or less, and that works just fine for me in Florida. So that's kind of how my career has unfolded to this point, except for now, being in Table Rock. I've utilized all of the Garmin electronics and Livescope and learned how to fish deep, and I finally put it to good use at the end of last season and had a good roll there toward the last 4 or 5 events where it was all smallmouth, deep water, current stuff, and here we are. I've talked plenty here, so it's time for you guys to talk a little bit.
Well, so you kind of went over and being Southern. Well, we're getting an echo.
Yeah, we got an echo there on your side, I think.
Is it on my side?
Well, when you were talking, it was.
Yeah,
right there. No?
Maybe your volume being up.
Maybe your volume up.
Okay.
Mike says he loves a man with whiskey barrels for shelves. So.
Hey, I'll show you. Let me show you guys. That was actually my ingenious discovery right there. What do you think of that? Huh?
That's nice, man.
I put in my.
That is very. I like that.
This is my man.
Jealous.
So my basement, my wife allowed me just to go crazy with our basement of her new house here, and it's 5 years old now, so it's not a new house. But my basement, I've actually got. I'm gonna swing you around here. Take a look. So I built it so that I could put my boat and my truck and everything in here, keep it hooked up. And then I've got my tackle room in there, which I'm not going to be able to take you in there. I've got my tackle room set up. It was actually our fallout shelter. That's the overdig on the front porch. So I just filled it full of tackle. It's pretty cool. And we got a couple bedrooms down here, but I was really happy. She said, just do whatever you want to with the basement. So,
man, I need to skip. We're getting ready to put a 27 by 40 garage on the side of our house for the boat and truck, but I like that idea a lot better.
It's pretty sweet. You don't have to go outside. You just come downstairs. There's no going out in the rain or the cold. It's heated and air conditioned all the time. Scroggins and Brett Myers stayed with me for the MLF when they came to Table Rock. I guess it's been 2 years ago now. And Scroggins, it was funny. He was in Florida, obviously in there on the St. John's, and he said, man, I started getting my tackle ready. He said, I knew I was coming to your house, and he'd been here before. And it was like 120 degrees in his garage. And he said, I said, well, heck with this. I'm going somewhere where it's air conditioned. And I just moved all my stuff out. He backed right in here and he camped out. I thought I was going to have to kick him out. I got to be honest with you. But it's great having friends like that.
Yeah. Didn't Britt just try to take about 10 feet off of the side of a point in his boat recently? Was that Britt?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't hear about that.
There was a video out. I thought it was Britt, but I could be wrong. But there was a guy running in the morning at takeoff, and there's boats around him, and he's trying to cut it just a little bit close, and he hit a roller, and it kind of pushed him over, and he just jumped over the side of a point, and he had a GoPro on the Yellowtech stick there in the back, and he slices through that point, and then just kind of shuts down and kind of looks everything over, and he was okay. But
yeah, hang on.
Who was that? He's pulling it up right now.
I'll pull it up here while you guys go ahead and talk. I'll pull it up.
It's pretty crazy. Let's see. Tim says, shout out to Chad from another Winkle, Illinois native.
Yeah. Oh, man, good. Glad you're here, Tim. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, absolutely. Winkle, Illinois.
Then, let's see. Dave wants to know, Chad, have you ever fished Pinckneyville City Lake? There's some really nice ones in there.
Oh, it's got some good ones in there, and I guess it still does. It's been a few years since I've been there, but yeah, I have fished it, mainly with the high school fishing club. But yeah, it definitely is a sleeper. That DuQuoin City Lake, Pinckneyville City Lake, all of that. I mean, I've definitely spent some time on there. It's been a while, but yeah, it's got some good ones. I'm glad to hear it's still going well.
Yeah, I'm trying to get over there. See, I fish Cedar Lake a lot. I fish Lake of Egypt, and I fish Kincaid quite a bit. And I'm trying to start hitting some of those lesser known lakes over there, like the Pickneyville and the Marion City Reservoir, because
Devil's Kitchen, all that.
Yeah, Devil's Kitchen and Grassy. Those are a couple good ones. And Devil's or Little Grassy's been fishing a lot better this year, from what I've heard. Those lakes really go in cycles over there. They're small, and if you get a lot of people, well, it doesn't take much to have a down couple of years, a bad spawn or something. If you get a lot of meat eaters, and they'll clean them out. And of course, Devil's Kitchen, they need to take as many 12-inch bass out of that lake as possible. It's still over infested. Was it like that when you lived down here?
It was. It always, they'd always have if I recall correctly here, they always had a tournament on, and I don't think I ever fished it, but they'd have a tournament that they had one day on Grassy, one day on Devil's Kitchen. And it was obviously a 2-day event. But somebody would always catch a giant one out of Devil's Kitchen. I mean, a 7-8 pounder. I mean, it's got them in it. It would be interesting. So now, knowing what I know about fish movement and how they react with all of the standing timber, and I think that back years ago, I think there's probably a lot better fish in there than what most people realize. And the reason I say that is because until we could look forward with sonar and fish trees and the introduction of the A-rig years ago, that opened our eyes to what's truly there, and how those fish move, how they use the trees, and how many fish actually just roam. And here on Table Rock, it's amazing the amount of fish that just use the bait balls as their cover, and they are open water fish. And we've literally had 50, 60, 70 fish days, spooning them in real deep water and in clear water situations where in Southern Illinois that exists on Grassy and Devil's Kitchen, things of that nature, but before we couldn't see them. And now we can. So, it would, one of these days, that's kind of on my bucket list. I'm going to go back home, and I still call Southern Illinois my home because it truly is. And I want to get on those waters, knowing kind of with the experience that I've had now in all the different places across the nation, and see what they have to offer, because I just feel like that there's a lot of those fish, and they're difficult to catch. Don't get me wrong. I mean, for anybody that fishes, but at the same time, just to be able to see how they react and be able to find them easier now than what we ever could before. But yes, I mean, so to give you a little backstory here, there's a private lake just outside of Pinckneyville called Gander Hill. And I used to be able to fish it with a high school team, and it's actually a goose hunting club, a duck and goose hunting club is what it is. And they have about a 550, give or take a few acres, strip cut there. And I fished it for a long time with side image and down image. And, the guys that they sell so many memberships a year to there, and it helps them generate revenue to help pay for the duck and the goose club. And, I was able to fish there. They were nice enough to let us go and bring the high school teams there. And it's just full of fish. And for years, it had a tremendous amount of 12, 14, 15-inch fish in it. I mean, you could catch them till you were sick of catching them, literally, because it had milfoil that growed off of the edge. It was clear because it had it had the vegetation that filtered the water. And last year, actually, my nephew Deacon, I took him out there. They let me come back and for a day with him. And they had implemented to their members that they had a fisheries biologist come out there and tell them, you need to start telling everybody to take all these 12-inchers out of there. It had so many 4-pounders in it. It was unreal. I think if I'm not off here, I think we caught 56 4+ pounders in one day.
Dang.
And I was like, huh?
Was your arm sore?
Well, my nephew caught the majority of them, and it was his 12th birthday. So he's 12 years old. And I was like, oh my God, he's ruined for life. I kept telling him, Deacon, this doesn't happen normally. This is a special day. It's a special place. But, you know, I mean, you got to keep in mind, they let me put my boat on there. They had a boat ramp and everything. So it was great. So just to show you what the removal of those 12 inches actually will do for a lake. And it'd been 5 or 6 years since I'd been on it.
Yeah. I'll show you this video we were talking about real quick. I finally found it here. Let me share it over here. So this is the video here.
Whoa, yeah. Oh, he did.
Yeah, that's rowdy.
I'd say he's pretty well done.
He went up on the bank, didn't he?
Yep.
Is that Britt?
Does it say who it is?
I don't think it does.
That's who I was
Let me figure out how to go back here.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know the follow up on what happened, but I could imagine some ears were bent on his prop, and his lower unit was probably in really bad shape. He probably had to fish off the trolling motor, I would imagine.
So full send.
Yeah, looked like he was headed in that direction, didn't it?
Yes. That stuff happens fast. Have you ever had any? What's some of the craziest things that's happened to you out there running a boat? I mean, you've been on a lot of probably scary situations, I would imagine.
I have. Yeah, it's just, golly, I don't know. I mean, you know, we take so many chances on the Elite Series, and I'm not promoting that at all. I mean, you know, it's one of those deals whenever the whistle or the horn blows. I mean, it's pedal down and go. But I probably the scariest that the most severe situation that I've ever been in was whenever I was fishing with FLW, and we were on Lake Erie in St. Clair. We were going out of Metro Park in Detroit, and the winds that morning. Everybody knew that Pelee Island kind of was the deal for smallmouth with the reefs and all that. And the wind that morning was about 20 mile an hour it would have been out of the south a little bit. Well, it turned west, which was the worst. And it got up to about 40. I made it to Pelee, and it's like 37 miles, and I made it to Pelee in less than an hour because I was riding the troughs, and it was like 4 to 6 footers. It wasn't no big deal at that point on Lake Erie. But whenever I got to Pelee, I had to go to the back side of it to stay out of the wind, and it switched to the west. And I fished there until about 11:30 that day. And I remember coming around the end and looking, and I went, oh my God. I only had 3 fish. That was back when we still had co-anglers in the FLW tour. And my co-angler, I wasn't getting very many bites, but they were all big ones whenever you did get a bite. And I had 3 for like 16 or 17 pounds. So this just to show you, but he had 5 for almost 27. So it was one of those deals where I was fighting the wind, and you know, he only had 5 bites. He landed them all, and I lost a couple. So, I mean, I could have been right there with him, but we started, it was 11:30, and I said, put all your stuff up, strap everything down. We're going to start heading back. And that was early on in my career. And I was actually running the Ranger. It was the Z series at that point. I think it was a Z20 or a Z21. And we took off, and I remember there were 8 to 10 footers, and the tops of the waves were the waves were so big that the top 2 or 3 feet would break out when you would climb them. And so you'd go up, and the top 2 or 3 feet would break out. And as they was rolling head on to you, we would fall 8 to 10 feet and just wham on the bottom, and then back up the next ones. And we did that. And I drove for 3 hours, and I turned around and I could still see Pelee Island. And I'm like, holy shit, we have got some problems here. And my co-angler said, you need to stop and check on those fish. I was like, what are we going to do for them at this point? I was like, I'm trying to keep us alive.
Yeah.
And it was a scary deal. And whenever I got back, I did make it back on time. And I got back, and my batteries had came loose in the boat, and it had taken all my plumbing and everything out. So all the live wells were wiped out. The batteries were loose in the back. It was a bad situation. And anyway, I ended up totaling that boat. It cracked it apart. Yeah, it was cracked apart. The lives were all cracked up. The cap was all cracked off of it. It was a bad deal. I mean, I really, at that point, I realized that I dodged a bullet, and I don't want to ever get put in those situations again.
Yeah. My wife and I, she fished a tournament with me down at Kentucky Lake probably about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. And the wind picked up from the south bad. And we were all the way up at the dam coming from Barkley, going just cutting across the lake to go to the marina weigh-in right there. And it took us probably an hour and a half to get across there. And I mean, it was just, I mean, you couldn't do nothing because the waves were coming from the side. So there was no way. And we were just shooting straight across. And it's not like we could have went up the lake any farther because the dam was there and then come back down. But
it comes to a point where it's not about how fast you can get there. It's just, can I make it out of this alive?
Yeah.
You just kind of got to take whatever time is necessary to survive.
She was freaking out. But
Cody says it was Aaron Britt, and Hellabass says the boat and motor were totaled. So he was on Smith Lake as well. The crash was on Smith Lake.
Holy cow.
Crazy stuff, man. Yeah, that's I've heard some really bad stories about that part of the country. Europe, the big Great Lakes, and they get those big, huge swellers, and
they can keep them.
I've never experienced anything that crazy. I mean, I've had
not that.
I've been on Wren Lake one time where it was pretty rough. There was about a 30-mile-an-hour north wind, and that's just wide open. There was probably 5-footers out there. I don't even know. I was a lot younger. And then the Ohio River one time, I was at Smithland Pool, and it was pretty rowdy. It's one of those deals where you're about a couple miles downriver from, let's say, Galconda Marina, and you look up at a point, and you know that you need to get to that point, and you see what's in front of you, and you're not really quite sure how you're going to get there. You had to kind of just 45 everything and just kind of play it, just kind of be part of it and let it happen. And then you get, you go this way for a little bit, and then you zigzag back the other way, and you just kind of, or that's how I did it. I just kind of worked my way back and forth up the river, but it's sketchy, very sketchy.
Yeah, Hellabass said, I don't understand how he didn't disqualify for the day.
Said he weighed in fish too. He was allowed to weigh in fish.
Yeah, I don't know what the regulations or rules are for that. I don't know.
Well, as long as he didn't, pull out of the water or get out of the boat, man, he's good to go. I mean, he can fish on the trolling motor and do whatever.
He have a kill switch on too.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
I don't know if that's true or not, but you never know.
Said he didn't have a kill switch on, and I don't know. Pretty scary. He's lucky if he didn't.
Yeah, Doug Cheatham's on here. Auto Treat. Got to fish with him. You guys saw that Lake Waffapello video I did last week. That was Doug. He was showing me how to throw a 5XD and off a river channel, bumping stumps. So that was a fun day. I was
catching them on a 5XD this weekend. Yeah. Over at Egypt. So
yeah, I haven't thrown that much the last year or so. It's Do you find that you get away from certain baits that you used to fish a lot and start kind of gravitating towards different things, and you kind of forget about the baits you used to forget or used to fish?
That's a good question. And I guess I try to always remember my roots. It's hard not to go back to, when you're struggling in an event or, things, maybe you just can't get anything going. Your brain just constantly rolls back through scenarios and experiences. And, there's been so many different baits introduced since I started fishing that literally, so it's funny. Everybody thinks, or everybody has a perception, I should say, that the Elite Series guys, and we do to a certain extent, have an upper hand on all of the new baits that hit the market. And, like glide baits, you name it, go on and on and on. But you still revert back to those days where, okay, what consistently worked for me in these situations or similar situations. And I do that a lot. However, over the years, there has been other baits that have taken the place, like years ago, like when I fish crab orchard all the time. I mean, we fished cottonmouth lures, peewee jigs, and the magnum jigs all the time. I mean, that was just, I mean, for God's sake, I fished laydowns and grass with 10-pound Maxima fluorocarbon, a spinning rod, and a 16th ounce peewee jig. And I won a lot of money doing that. For that time frame, but I don't. Ironically enough, I still have those baits. I still have a ton of them, and but now it's just a little bit different now. I mean, with the introduction of all the swim baits and the glide baits and the big crank baits and things of that nature. So I don't know that you ever forget about where you come from, or you ever forget about the things that got you to where you're at. But at the same time, there's so much more to consider too. Fishing's just changed. It's evolved to a point where I can't really. I mean, at some points I don't even understand it. I mean, it's just, you got guys on tour that I fish with and against every day that are experts in that field. And an example, when they're on a big soft swim bait, Zaldane and some of those guys like that, Carl Jacobson, they're going to be right there in the hunt. And that when that bite exists, if they get 5 bites, they're going to have a giant stringer. And it's not, even though it's still to a certain point is about catching a limit, making sure you secure points, making sure that you don't do some stupid shit like I did this weekend, at Pickwick, and only have a 1 fish first day. You change up, but I know that if there's a flipping bite, if it's grass, I know that I'm going to play with the best of them. I know that if it's a power fishing deal, Greg Hackney is going to be there every single time. So, to kind of in a roundabout answer your question, I don't know that you ever give that up, but you do tend to start easing away from it, and making sure that, hey, I'd like to catch a 6, 7, 8, 9 pounder on a glide bait, and that's probably my shortcoming is being able to have enough time to master those techniques. That's the whole deal. I mean, you can put a glide bait in the hand of a guy that's never had it before. He may catch one. He'll have several that bite it or follow it, and that's the craziest thing that I've ever seen. And my eyes were open to that actually a couple of years ago, right here on Table Rock. There was a friend of mine came down to shoot a bunch of video with me for me to be able to meet some contract obligation stuff. And I have him come down, and he goes, "Have you ever fished this glide bait?" And we got to fishing it on Table Rock in just a little bit of a pre-spawn situation. And literally I couldn't put it down, and we didn't catch crap on it. You know what I mean? I mean, we didn't, but the fish that committed theirself, or showed theirself, I should say, to that bait was unbelievable. I mean, like here, it's not easy to catch a 20-pound stringer on Table Rock, but the 20-pound stringers that we seen that was available to catch was mind-blowing. So, it kind of opened your eyes. It's like, oh crap, well, there ain't no wonder whenever they bite it, Zaldane's in the hunt, or this guy's in the hunt. And so, it's just, fishing's interesting to say the least. By the time you think you've got it all figured out, you really realize you don't know crap about it. Something changes, the new baits come out, like the A-rig. I was there when Paul Elias showed the world, even though the guys in Alabama had been showing that A-rig. They'd been fishing A-rig a long time before Paul Elias got a hold of it. But I was at that FLW event where Paul Elias absolutely crippled the field with it. And there was guys pulling every string that they had to get them in during the tournament so that they could start using them. And the guys that did get them made and get them in went ahead and pulled that tournament out. But, it's just stuff like that. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Hold on. Before you do that real quick, let me Now we got that echo. That's weird. I heard that echo when you were in now. Now it's gone. I don't know why that was.
Wait a minute. Move your cup again.
Move my cup again?
Yeah.
Is that it?
No. It's good now. Well, I guess if we only get it every once in a while.
I don't know.
It's fine. Interesting. I wanted to say that if you had a question or a comment and we didn't get to it, repost it again, because we went through a bunch of stuff and we're actually down here towards the bottom. So a couple things you touched on. One was that peewee jig, that 16th ounce peewee jig. It's funny. I've been doing a Thursday night live stream with my buddy Ron DeRosa, who lives on Lake of Egypt. He's a guide up at Mille Lacs, RD Outdoors. But we were talking last Thursday night. We were talking about Crab Orchard and how he used to fish that 16th ounce peewee jig. So as soon as you said that, it put a smile on my face. And then another thing is learning all these techniques. You know, I guess a lot of us just assume that since you're a professional fisherman that you have all this free time to go out and dial in all these new techniques. But because that's the same problem that, you know, like the weekend warriors or the people that just get to go out once a week have. You know, you've got all these techniques that you want to learn, but you just don't have the time. So you do the research on them and you kind of get
the general idea.
Yeah, you take away the variables, I guess, that you can't control. But bottom line is it still requires time on the water and going out and getting a feel for you know, what equipment to throw it on, what action you're looking for, and then the situations to apply those baits in. And that's what I find personally is the hardest thing to do. You know, I try to pick out like a technique every year. The last 2 years ago, it was punching, you know, just punching grass, heavyweight, 1 ounce weight, which by the way, that 1 ounce weight that you showed on Facebook earlier, that was he was 1 ounce away from going to the next day. Didn't mean to bring that up, but I just try to pick out a technique every year. And that way I can, you know, make some ground on it. I know I stabbed you right in the heart, man.
Yeah,
you see how I snuck that in on you, man. That's kind of dirty.
Yeah.
But one more thing, the Gene LaRue salt crawl. You mentioned Crab Orchard. Was that a big player back in Crab Orchard back in the day?
To a certain extent. I mean, we flipped salt crawls a little bit, obviously, you know, but, you know, for me, it was the paddle tail worm. It was the cottonmouth lure stuff. I mean, I was fortunate enough that I got, you know, Fred Washburn took me underneath his wing, to say, and then me and his son-in-law, Mike Galloway, we were team partners for years and years and years. And so, you know, I kind of learned from Fred, who had at that point been, you know, national to with some of the stuff. And so I was exposed to that. But yeah, I mean, we did fish the salt cross some. I flipped it and punched grass, but nothing like what I do now, you know, I mean, but at the same time, you know, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of those days with the equipment that you had. I mean, we were still fishing with heavy monofilament, and, you know, 7-foot heavy rod was the, you know, like the deal. And now it's 7-11 extra heavies and braid. And, you know, we have weights that go up to, good God, I mean, I've got 2.5 ounce plus weights here that I flip in Florida. So yeah, it
was lead back then though.
I just figured boat anchors in Florida as thick as those mats are.
Yeah, some of that stuff's ridiculous.
Yeah, you know, Florida's an interesting creature. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. So I seen a question roll up here is whenever you downsize and you slow up, I don't mean to bypass anybody. I'm just catching a few of them.
No, you're right ahead. You're right ahead.
But you know, I'm not as quick to downsize now as I am to try to. So here's the deal with that. Downsizing to me now is a finesse situation, and it's clear water. It's it is in different situations, but it's more of a reaction bite that I start going to when things slow down for me. So like now I fish a lot of 3/4 to 1.5 ounce jigs, whereas before, as I mentioned, I fished that 16th ounce jig. And it's not necessarily, it's if I'm only going to get 2 or 3 bites on it, I want the opportunity to catch or to get that big bite and to land it. obviously on a spinning reel with 10-pound maximum fluorocarbon and a 16-ounce jig, if I get a bite, it's a 50-50 deal whether I'm going to land that fish. If I'm fishing 50 or 60-pound braid and a 3/4 to an ounce, ounce and a half jig, I'm going to catch that fish every time. It's a bite catch ratio deal for me. And a lot of times, believe it or not, rather than throw an FNS worm or a Cinco, weightless Cinco, something like that out there, and that does work obviously excellent at certain times of the year. You just kind of play around with things, but you very quickly eliminate them. And just like, okay, for instance, this weekend at Pickwick, my wife asked me an interesting question that I still laugh. I'm still laughing about, obviously, to this point. She goes, after the first day of me only weighing one fish that weighed 3 pounds, and I caught that on a 3/4 ounce jig, by the way. She said, do you have a plan for tomorrow? I was like, yeah, my plan for tomorrow is absolutely to do nothing that I did today. And that was fish shallow, and I still power fished, but at the same time, I knew that what I had done, I'm fishing in 3 foot or less, did not work at all. And I was committed to not doing that again. And that was basically the principle of my decision going into day 2. And, it worked out. And I had to fight it all day long. I mean, I'd go by a lay down that was sitting up there in a foot and a half of water with the water that had jumped 6 feet. It's in the high 50s, and they ought to be all over that stuff, but it's the Tennessee River. There's a lot of current. So, I had to take all those things into consideration. And then once I got a couple bites, then it was game on. I knew I was doing the right thing, and I was able to commit and stay with it all day. And I weighed in at a decent bag. I mean, it wasn't enough to get me to where I needed to be on the 3rd day, but it was close. And it's just situations like that you have to rely so much on time on the water. And if your confidence, or it's all dependent on the situation. So do I need 12 pounds to do well in this? Am I trying to attain a goal of, making the classic? Now, obviously you look back on it and it's much easier to reflect. Just like the first day, I'm like, gosh, if I just moved off the bank just a little bit, I wasn't 3 feet difference. I was in the right places. I just wasn't 3 feet difference from where I fished to where I should have fished. And those are always easy questions to answer, but it's in the moment that you have to make that decision. And man, I tell you, it's just a different deal, now with these guys that I fish against, not that the local guys are some of the toughest sticks in the world, and my hat's off to them. But at the same time, the elite guys, even when you think you go through a practice period and you haven't caught crap, they're going to wreck them. It's going to happen every single time, no matter what, they're going to wreck them. You can't allow yourself to fish for small fish unless you're just trying to cut a check or maybe trying to salvage that event. That's the only time that I would downsize and go slower, and it would definitely be dependent on the situation.
Good deal. Tom says he's ran in 6-footers on Galconda. Wind kicked up while we were in a creek and the wind was going against the current. That was not fun. Yep. T. Harris wants to know, do you still stay in touch with the MLF guys that left Bass? All
of them. I have my network. I'm very fortunate, man. I made a lot of friends out here whenever, I fish both sides. So MLF is FLW now. So it's the same. Yes, I stay in touch with a whole bunch of them. Scroggins, Myers. I mean, you name it. If I fished against them, more than likely I know them, and we still talk from time to time. Maybe not every week or every month, but yeah, I do. And I wish those guys the best. I hope that they have great and prosperous careers. I wish MLF the best. It's just there's only 2 professional. Well, actually there's 3 now, but there's, basically 2 major professional tours out here. I participated in both of them, and I've got a ton of friends that fish on both sides, and it's just been a really cool career. It was a great move that I had the opportunity to leave the fire department to go fish professionally and make so many friends and have so many great experiences along the way. And you know, but it's also at the same time, you know, it's one of those deals where it's a humbling sport no matter what you do. Like I said, but yeah, we all share the same ups and downs from the top to the bottom, whether it's Van Dam, skeet.
So
Swindle,
who's the biggest goofball you've met?
The biggest Swindle, hands down. That dude is nuts. He's a great friend of mine. We spend a lot of time together, but I'm telling you, he is exactly in real life how you see him on TV, on Facebook. That is that dude. There is no other Gerald Swindle. I mean, he is the biggest.
Swindle. Okay, yeah. I couldn't hear who you said, and oh yeah, I could see that hands down. Yeah,
hands down. I mean, it don't matter what you're doing. It does not matter. It don't matter if you're. I've stayed at his farm in Jasper. It don't matter if you're clearing fields to deer hunt. It don't matter if you're fishing together. We fish team tournaments together. It don't matter. I mean, he's crazy. Yeah, he's crazy.
Dude, I was down I fished the Toyota Owners Tournament a couple times. The last 2 years have been at Pickwick, and you know, Swindle and Ott Defoe and Ike and Van Dam and Lester, those guys are all down there. And last year, I kind of hung around Swindle for a little bit, and just I talked to him a little bit, and then some friends of mine were talking to him, and as you know, I walked away. I just kind of hung around there and just watched his interaction. And he, like you said, he's just on top of his game, just nonstop. And I'm like, man, that takes a lot of energy, but you can just tell that's who he is. And it's just part of who he is. So it's not as much energy, you know?
There's for the most part, most of the guys that are on tour are who they are. They who they portray. Now, Iaconelli's different off camera versus on camera, 110%, completely different dude. But you know, he's not nearly as jacked up on Mountain Dew whenever he's off camera as he is when he's on camera. But you know, still all great guys, and like I said, it's been a privilege to know them and to get to know them all and their family.
Cody's got a question for you right there. He said it would be interesting to hear how Chad adapted to deep structure offshore fishing versus shallow, and what advice he would have for someone starting to learn offshore fishing.
So, yeah, again, I moved to Table Rock because I was really struggling with the offshore fishing. And, you know, it was, I got into an area where that was prevalent, where deep water, now, you know, deep water to me, from where I learned where my grassroots was 5 feet to, honest to goodness, a couple of months ago, we caught him here on Table Rock in 90 feet. And so you have to experience that on systems that are capable of producing offshore structured bites that are prevalent. And if that makes sense, you know, and there's no substitute for time on the water. You have to pay your dues. Plain and simple. You got to play your dues, and you got to try different things. You do have to do what we talked about earlier. You have to get that big swim bait out. You have to get that 10XD out. You have to get that 8XD out, and you have to go out and you have to put it to work. And you have to learn your electronics. Dude, I'm telling you, I am computer illiterate for the most part. I mean, I really have had to come a long ways, even with iPads, iPhones, all that. And so, you know, the new introduction of all of these electronics, it has been taxing to me, but I've been able to spend a lot of time with them. And, you know, just punching buttons, getting myself in and out of trouble, and look, staring at it. And I mean, you just have to commit to it. That's what you have to do. You have to go out and say, I'm going to fish. I'm going to find fish on structure today. I don't care what the depth, but it's not going to be on the bank. You have to get off the bank, and you have to just spend hours and hours and hours looking at it, changing the settings, trying different baits, different techniques, learning what the reaction stuff is. And like I said, now we can see how the fish react to structure situations. So that's really cool. When you have a forward-looking sonar, no matter whose sonar you use, you can see, holy crap, there's 5 or 10 fish in that brush pile, and I just threw a jig in there, and they ran from it. And now I'm going to throw an A-rig over it or a swim bait over it, and then now they're just following. How am I going to get these fish to bite? And you just keep working with them until you actually get that bite to occur, and then you can kind of start expanding on it, and learn from it. But time on the water, there is no way that I can make you understand that that's a giant key. And hats off for these guys that, the weekend warriors that only have the weekend. They have other obligations and families, and I get it. I was there. Yeah, you just got to go out and do it. You have to go. And Mark Rose told me that years ago. Mark Rose is a good friend of mine, and he's probably one of the best deep water structure fishermen on the planet. And, and Mark just said, you got to go. You just got to go. You got to go spend hours and hours and hours idling around looking at it. I mean, on the Elite Series, it's literally, so once you get to that point and you've experienced all those things and all those different situations, and you're pretty confident in the way that, okay, so if I find fish set up on a brush pile, or if I find fish set up on the ledge, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be able to get them to bite, or I'm going to stay with them until I figure out how to get them to bite. At that point, now it's just about finding them, and you can spend, just so we get 3 official days of practice. And at this point, you can spend 2.5 days of doing nothing but idling around. You have to get in the right area of the lake. You have to get in the right situation. You have to find the right structure, and you can't be finding the stuff that everybody else has found. The stuff that sticks out is not the stuff that's going to produce for you. It's just not going to happen. Everybody in the world's going to snatch up on that, and they're going to have those fish covered up. But so finding that stuff that's just off the beaten path is really the golden key. And I still struggle with it. I mean, I do. I have a hard time not trying to fish during practice, but at the same time, you have to realize the group that you're in and what you're up against, and if that makes any sense at all. Just a lot of time on the water staring at those things. And then, obviously we live in an era that the technology and the stuff is put out there. There's so many useful points that'll get you above that learning curve, or into that learning curve, I should say, on social media, YouTube, you name it. It's all out there. And you can, once you start picking up on some of that stuff and pay attention to every little detail that's out there, you can shorten that learning curve really quickly for you, and basically apply what all these guys have spent hours and hours and hours, thousands of hours learning how to do.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's that echo again.
Yeah, that wasn't my glass because I didn't have it.
I don't know. I don't hear it now. Now I hear it. No, now it's gone. Anyway, we'll probably be talking about this echo off and on.
Yeah,
that.
it's
like
a weird.
It's a ghost echo, but yeah, it's that's something I struggle with too. I'm getting better at it, but going out and idling for at least as long as I can tolerate it, because I only get to fish once a week or so, and I want to fish so bad when I get out there. And I got this YouTube channel, so I get all my equipment set up, and that takes time. And then instead of having 8 hours, I got 7 hours and 15 minutes or whatever, and then you go out and idle, and it's hard to be disciplined to idle and look for, well,
especially when you're shooting video.
It's hard it takes time to figure out what to look for, what is worth stopping on. And I'm still learning that. I got a pretty good idea now. But I remember a lot of times, and this still happens, I'll see something, I won't see something for quite a while. You're idling around 20, 30 minutes, you're idling points at, places where the fish should be, and you're not really seeing anything. And then you see a little bit of something. So you want to fish, but that little bit of something is not really what you need to see, but yet you want to fish so bad that it's enough to maybe make you want to stop and make some cast. And then you get then you get sidetracked, then you're off your idling game. You kind of the next thing you know, you're experimenting, where I'm trying to be disciplined enough to know what is worth stopping on and keep going until I find what is worth stopping on. I want to see those 10, 15, 20 little dots there on the side scan. And if I'm only seeing, just a little bit of bait fish or maybe some brush that might have fish in it, but I really can't see them, I need to keep moving around. And that's, for me personally, just speaking right here, that's what I'm working on. It's hard to be disciplined. So.
It is. Yeah, you got to break the monotony every once in a while. You got to get up and throw the cast, or make a cast or two or whatever. No, I get it, but it's just one of those things. Like I say, it just depends on your time limitations too. If you only have one day to look, and they're they're going to be on deep structure, that's going to be the deal. Then it's your decision. It's all about decisions and whether to stop or to break the monotony, or everybody's a little bit different, and I can only roll by so many good looking mats in Florida without stopping and flipping in one. You know what I mean? It's fact. Okay, I found 10 of these. Like on the 10th one, I got to stop and see if I can catch one. Whether it's a pennywort mat or whatever. But
Hellabath is in the same boat with me. He says he hates idling. It's
he's got to bring extra snacks and a sandwich.
Yeah. But and then you're like, am I just idling too much? Or do I just need to fish? It's all
we all ask the same questions. Is my electronics really working? Have I got it dialed in right? Am I actually seeing what I need to see? Is that a brush pile over there? Is there fish in that brush pile? I don't know. Do I need to fish it? So those are all great questions, but at the end of the day, even though with technology where it's at, and electronics where they're at, you cannot. I don't care whose electronics you're running. If those fish are glued to the bottom, you cannot see them. Mm-hmm. And if they're suspended out in the middle of nothing or underneath the bait ball, well, great, that's fantastic. They're easy to spot. They're not so easy to catch, but they're easy to spot. So. We all ask ourselves the exact same stuff. What's the best deal? What's the better deal going? And we even lean more and more and more on the manufacturers for that at this point. I'm in touch with Garmin all the time. Hey, this is what I've got. What's going on? Am I off base? If you follow last year, I completely missed the freaking deal, and I'm like, what is up with my stuff? I'm like, I rolled through some of the same stuff that some of the guys that really wailed on them. Like, they're running the same you are, the same settings, everything. So, it's questions we all ask.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know we've talked about it several times on there before, and Gabe knows, like Kincaid, for instance, and there's a couple guys on here that we've talked about, over there and everything, and learning how to graph. And that's what I tell them guys. I do it in the late fall or early winter. It kind of keeps you from fishing so much because your fish are just so inactive at that point. And that's a good time to do it.
In the middle of winter, I guess. Water's clear and,
and it makes it a little easier to graph too. When you're looking for stuff, it's a little, like I said, with that water being clear, you can see a little better.
Aaron's got a question on there. He says, Chad, do you feel like you are a better angler from learning how to fish tougher fisheries here in Southern Illinois? And how has that carried over to your professional career?
No question, it's made me a better angler, because whenever I hit those tough situations and those walls where I'm struggling, I reflect back on the days where I grew up and where I cut my teeth, or I run into a situation where there's a lot of boats. I'm like, shit, this is nothing compared to what we used to go through on Crab Orchard, that fished half of what it should have been, and there'd be a 200 boat or a 400 boat tournament on there. Absolutely, it has made me a better angler because of it, and that goes through my mind all the time. Now at the same time, I still I'm like, okay, what is it that I'm missing? And I try to look for that one little thing that might get me that extra bite. But I do not get worried about Interesting fact. Some of my best tournaments have been on some of my worst practices. I don't base how my tournament's going to go on how my practice went at all. All I know is that my practice, if it's went bad, that I know a bunch of things not to do. Or, and this has happened a million times, I was in the right area, I was around the right fish, I fished them wrong. And it's just a little tweak, a little change, just very similar to Pickwick. I was in the right areas. I knew where those fish were. I just needed to fish them differently. And that's what I did on Pickwick on the second day. I settled down and I slowed down. I tried different things, different techniques. I watched. Here's the biggest key for situations like that, especially if you're fishing in a crowd. And I do this in Florida all the time. The crowd will push fish schools. And I've seen it happen time and time and time again. So when you're in a crowd, make sure and pay attention to what everybody else is doing, and not so that you can do the same thing. So you see somebody catch a 12-incher, a 15-incher, a 2-pounder, a 3-pounder. Pay attention to what's going on in your surrounding environment, and then try things that other people aren't. And I think that you're going to be very surprised at what happened. And so, yeah, fishing tougher fisheries where you only get 5, 6, 7 bites in a day's time. Don't sweat it. It's not over until the bell rings at the end of the day. And there has been so many times that in an event that I knew I was getting close weight wise. And I knew that I maybe needed just that kicker fish or maybe 1 or 2 bites, and I had maybe 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour left to go. And the tendency is to get excited. The adrenaline starts to pump, and you get to going and you try to go faster and faster and faster to make it happen. And just, you have to check it back and say, look, I've been in this situation a million times. I've fished on lakes where, I couldn't get 3 or 4 bites a day. And sometimes it doesn't matter, those 3 or 4 bites in one day. And I fished a lot of tournaments where I've made a $10,000 or a better check and a great finish and never had a limit. And it's just because, okay, I'm not fishing but for 5 bites a day, and maybe you messed 1 or 2 of those up. So yeah, I mean, it all plays into the equation. It's all experiences. It's all time on the water. And, that's kind of, I hope that answered your question. But yeah, it's definitely made me a better angler because of it. I just try to reflect back to that. I try to settle myself back down. A lot of different things roll through your head at that point in time throughout the day, and you just do the best you can with what you got. And
it's kind of like you have to fish as fast as you can, but slow enough to get bites. That's what I always find.
Through them, and that's a good scenario. You can literally fit. And there again, back to fishing them wrong. I just fished them wrong. I fished through them too fast. I used the wrong bait. I didn't get a reaction bite. I should have been using a reaction bait versus what I was doing. I was just 2 or 3 foot off of them. Scenarios go on and on and on. And trust me, if it can happen, it's happened to me. Look at this. I can't tell you how many times I finished 51st. I can't tell you. It's just like, oh my God. And, but at the same time, you have to realize, I'm like, okay, don't get me wrong. It still stings that I was 1 ounce out of the 50 cut. I mean, there was a $5,000 difference to me versus getting to fish today versus coming home.
As long as somebody reminds you of that, right?
Yeah,
I would say that.
It's not all about the money. It's really not. It's not all about the money. It's more at this point. It's like, man, I left a lot of points on the table going toward the Bassmaster Classic again. And, because if I would have fished today, there's a chance I could have moved up, and I'm telling you, every point matters in an Angler of the Year race and with that group. So, not getting to fish today cost me points. And, but at the same time, it is what it is. I mean, I got to look at the positive aspect of it. I learned what not to do on the second day. And I made myself do it. I forced myself to do it as hard as it was. And trust me when I tell you, it was hard. I'm a power fisherman. I want to fish shallow. I love to fish shallow. And I had made myself stay off of it. And it worked out. So, you know, it's as important learning what not to do as it is what to do. This is the lesson there.
So when you let's talk a little bit more about that Pickwick tournament. You knew the conditions that you were going to be faced as far as when you went down there to practice. I guess what I'm getting at is how do you prepare for a tournament? Do you do a lot of like Google Earth studies? I mean, I know you got some past experience most likely from Pickwick, so maybe you had a rough idea of what you wanted to do, but it changed so much because of the rain and the high water. You probably knew that was going to happen. So going down there for practice, how did you approach that with maybe the way it was going to be later on in the tournament in the back of your head?
So that great question. I didn't know the lake was going to jump 6 feet. I had no clue that was going to happen. And to be quite honest with you, there was part of the problem with day one. Day one is I'd never fished on a system, even though I fished a lot of rivers, I'd never fished on a system that was flowing over 180,000 and had jumped 6 feet. So I was in a little bit of a quandary. As much experience as I've had on systems of that nature, and as much weather conditions changing, that was not one of them. And other than fishing Kentucky Lake for years and years and years, you know, obviously being from Southern Illinois, we would run down there and fish Kentucky Lake anytime those fish were in the bushes. But once they got on the ledges, we'd back away from it because we knew that was a local deal. I knew that there was a time period on the Tennessee River systems that those fish were very reluctant to get past that winter pool elevation. And so when that water first comes up, when they bring it on up to summer pool, there is about a 1 to 2 week time period there that those fish just literally won't cross that line. And even though everything looks great, the bushes are great, the shallow water, you know, cover is abundant, and you can catch fish in it. You catch the males, you don't catch those females that you need to catch to do really well in that tournament. And I had that in the back of my mind, and I tried to apply again. That goes back to some earlier questions. I was really thinking, you know, I got to be careful of this. But the flow was unreal. The blowout was beyond me. I mean, there was so much stuff trashed. It was unreal. And so, you know, the first day of that event, I spent a lot of time running around looking to see what water I thought was fishable, what water I thought wasn't. And, you know, and in the back of my mind, knowing I was probably fishing too shallow, but at the same time, you know, I had just had that urge that I needed to be on the bank. And so anyway, long story short, yeah, it's just and it's one of those lessons chalked up to experience again. And I don't know what else to say. You know, it's just I knew better, and I just couldn't stop myself from doing it. And
you found fish in practice, right?
Yeah.
So were you still able to fish those same areas? Were you doing like a river thing, or was it
So here's a funny thing with Pickwick. So there was about a 3 mile stretch on Pickwick that literally up to that point with the water level at where it was, which was at winter pool and below, because it was low. It was 3 feet below winter pool when we got there. Okay. So those fish were in ditches. There was a few ditches in this backwater area that had grass in it. And it was just like I said, there wasn't very many miles of that in that river system that existed. And that's where the tournaments previous to ours that I had done research on, the ABA and some of those things, that's where all the big weight had come from. And we knew how they were catching them. I mean, they were catching them on traps and A-rigs, swim baits, chatter baits, things of that nature. And in practice, that's what unfolded. So going into the event, I practiced those areas just like 90% of my field did. Now, what the interesting part was is after the system jumped and the water came and the flow increased, I rode through there the first day and there was maybe 2 boats in there. And at any point in time during practice, you could ride by and there was 40 of the elite guys in there or more. And it was as far as you could see. And so, oh my gosh, dang. But a lot of it was dry ground, and then you had to get in just the ditches. And the grass was, 4 to 6 foot deep. And so what happened was, I've experienced this here on Table Rock before when the lakes jump big. Those fish don't move. And that's what ended up happening on the Tennessee River at Pickwick. Those fish, a lot of times, they just didn't move. And so the second day, that's exactly what I did, is I went back to those areas and I said, you know what? I know what not to do. So now I just need to figure out what to do. And there was 3 boats in that 3-mile stretch because everybody thought it was blowed out. Everybody thought that the level had jumped. They went on to bigger and better things. And some of the guys figured it out. Some of the guys didn't. And I said, I know there's a giant group of fish here. I know they didn't go too terribly far. I've just got to figure out how they adjusted to these conditions. And I was able to figure a little bit out. I mean, I didn't catch a giant bag by any means, but I mean, I was able to get a few bites quick. I was like, okay, I think I'm on the right deal. I expanded on it, and I pre-fished that tournament on the second day of the event. And that's how I caught what I caught. I mean, it just was. I just had to go to that mindset. Okay, what you did the first day didn't work. I don't think that those fish moved. They didn't move far, and I just, like I said, everybody else had bailed, so I had it all to myself, and that's what really sucks. Is I really feel like that if I'd have fished today, I could have caught another 20-pound plus bag, and but it's all hearsay at this point. So
no. What did you have the second day? What was your weight?
22.3.
Now he said I didn't get a big bag.
Well, there was a 25-pound bag caught today. So
22 is that's not a dink bag, man. I'd love to catch 22. So that's awesome that you made that adjustment, man. That's but like you said earlier, sometimes it's hard to fight that urge. And I was over at Cedar yesterday, and the lake is up about 2 foot, and it's muddy, 6 inches of visibility. Water is 52. I did see 57 in the afternoon, and man, I even brought a frog rod with me. I was ready to get it on, man. But I just couldn't get bit up there shallow. And I think what happened was they weren't quite up there yet. And in the afternoon, about an hour before about 30 minutes before I had to go, I found a little stretch that the fish were sitting up on some riprap shallow, and I caught some fish on a spinnerbait. But I probably should have been fishing that outside grass line that was out there in like the 8-foot zone, because that's how where they're at. They're just sitting there waiting for everything to get right, and then they're going to pull up and they're going to spawn.
We talked to, I think there was 4 tournaments on Lake of Egypt Saturday. I mean, there was a lot of boats. I know that, and everybody we ran into. You always hear the same story from the guys. Oh, yeah, they're not biting good. We don't have nothing, whatever. And that's what we heard all day long. And we never really put 2 and 2 together and thinking these guys were serious until we went to the weigh-in. And it was everybody struggled. I mean, even the guys in our tournament that are good sticks struggled big time. They had like 1 or 2 fish.
Egypt's been fishing pretty tough.
Yeah. But we found out we come off that grass line a little ways and even some steeper banks and hit about that 6 to 8 foot mark. Mm-hmm. And that's where we found them. Yeah, and it did really well, and everybody was kind of looking around like, well, they found them,
but sometimes it's hard to make those adjustments in real time, especially in a tournament of that magnitude, like an elite tournament. I can imagine. I mean, just in our little club tournaments, and USA Bassin and Angler's Choice, it's hard to make those decisions real time. So we're not fishing for $100,000,
Yeah, no kidding.
So. Good job. Mike Marfell says he always thought at the elite level, just make the tournaments 5 or 6 days and no practice. Just show up and start catching them, and the cream will rise to the top.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting concept. There's been a lot of talk about that. I really looked at MLF may probably beat us to that point, but it's that is definitely going to play into some of the guys' hands. There's some of the guys that get on fish just instantly. I mean, they know what's going to be the prevalent patterns, and they find the water, and they have a lot of experience. You got to realize that a lot of these systems we've been to time and time again. So, I'd be up for that. I'm all for that. Like I said, I'm a quick start. I'm a shoot from the hip guy, so I'm not opposed to that at all. That would definitely be some fun times.
Yeah. So looking at your next couple tournaments, I mean, are there any tournaments this year you're really looking forward to going to?
Dang, man, I'm really looking forward to Guntersville. I've spent a lot of time there, and that's one of my favorite fisheries in the entire world. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I finished third at the Sabine here a few years ago in an open, and I think I might have figured something out. Especially with the tidal waters going on. So I'm kind of looking forward to the Sabine, quite honest with you. And Fork, man, me and Fork have a love-hate relationship. Fork has a lot of big fish in it. It's a good power fishing lake, and it's certainly going to be at that time that we're going to be there because there's going to be a lot of fish shallow. And anytime that exists, I'm all in. But and then even though we probably aren't going to get to go to the lake in New York at the St. Lawrence, and last year I finished fourth there, but I'm looking forward to that one again. That's fun.
We had was it Mark Menendez that was on that was talking about wanting to go back to St. Lawrence? I think is what he said. That was probably one of his favorite lakes. He really liked that.
Yeah, I haven't got up. We're planning on going up north. I'm going up north for sure, up to Mille Lacs with my buddy Ron that was on here earlier. He's a guide up there, so we got an open invitation to go up there. And I've never been to a smallmouth destination lake. I mean, we've caught some fish in Kentucky Lake, but not just a big smallmouth factory like that. So I'm super excited.
Yeah. Hey guys, give me just a second here.
Sure, no problem at all.
Catch up on some of this stuff here.
Yeah.
So,
before he gets back, I'd mentioned that Fishing Reports Live, and actually, I want to get a report from you from Egypt or whatever later on. But we're trying to do this. Me and Ron are trying to do we're just calling it Fishing Reports Live. It's on Thursday nights at 7:30, and we're just trying to get on there and talk about the fishing experiences that we've had over the week. And then anybody that has been out there on the lakes, if you want to send like a fishing report to me at Gabe Montgomery Fishing or Tin Horse Monty or Tin Horse Monty 6 on Instagram, the first two are Facebook, we'd appreciate that. And also get on there and leave some fishing reports. What we're trying to do basically is just talk about what there are no fish in the sink. Yeah, right.
So it's all Photoshop.
It's off limits, no trespassing. But we're just trying to get a stream out there to kind of help the community, kind of create a community of people just kind of giving each other an idea of what to expect.
It's good. It's really going to help the local anglers that fish local tournaments, U.S. Bass and stuff like that. If you got tournaments coming up at these lakes, you guys are really going to pick up a lot of good information on that stuff. Maybe a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, ahead of time that could really, really help you out. So
yeah, or if you just want to take your kids fishing, you'll have an idea. Hey, they're biting pretty good at this lake, or what kind of water temperatures to expect. Is it muddy? Is it clear?
Yeah, I even gave my pond report.
Yeah,
and still nobody showed up.
So anyway, Thursday is at 7:30. That's just kind of a new thing. We're going to do that for a while, and actually, we're going to try to get. I am going to get in touch with somebody that can give us a lake report on Lake of the Ozarks. Somebody from Table Rock. Maybe Kentucky Lake.
I'll be there in 4 weeks.
I'd like to get like a couple guides to get on there and just for 10 minutes, just get on there and talk about the lake conditions, what's going on, what stages the fish are in. Is it they spawning or they left the banks and they're out set up in their summer patterns?
What's the guy's name? Patton. Scott Patton?
Scott Van Patten?
I
don't know that he guides on Kentucky Lake anymore. I think he maybe went south. I know Brent Anderson went south. Gotcha. I'm not sure. There's several guys down there that I can get a hold of. I was thinking of Jim Dill, Eric Prey from Table Rock, in Lake of the Ozarks.
Oh, we got quite a few guys down at Kentucky Lake. Menendez is down there. You got Mike Russell's down there.
You got Terry Bolton, Craig Hipsher. Hipsher fishes like 5 days a week, 6 days a week. He's a crappie guy too, so he's always out there. I could call him. He could jump on here for 10 minutes if he could figure out how to get on a live stream. I don't know that he can. He lives out there in the woods in Kentucky. But no, we were just talking, Chad. We were just talking about that. I'm trying to do we're doing a Thursday night live stream of fishing report update, and we're trying to get people. So the theory behind it is, me and my buddy Ron, we're able to fish, a lake a week. Ron lives on Egypt, so he's over there all the time, so he's got that covered. But then we're trying to create a community where people can get on the live stream and talk about the lakes that they've fished over the weekend, kind of leave a real-time report, water temps, water clarity, that kind of stuff. So if anybody's going to be going out on the weekend, they got an idea of what to expect. If they, if they got tournament, or if they just want to take their kids fishing, they got an idea. And then I was thinking to get a hold of some guides like Eric Prey down at Table Rock, maybe Pete Winters. I've fished a BFL with him. You would be a good source. Jim Dill, Lake of the Ozarks, but just somebody that can jump on the stream for maybe 10 minutes and just give like a short update. Kentucky Lake, just some of the things that are within driving distance of Cape Girardeau area, which is basically where we live. So that's kind of what we were talking about.
Well, here's a great question. Chad wants, are you going on Table Rock? And
are you guiding on Table Rock right now?
Yeah, I do. I got my captain's license about 3 years ago. I guide on Table Rock. I actually have done 4 or 5 trips already this year. And, my schedule only allows for so many per year. But I do a lot of electronic courses too. But yeah, I do guide on Table Rock. I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. And, this is a great fishery because you can usually catch quite a few fish, and no matter what time of year it is. And there's so many different ways to catch them. If people want to learn about drop shotting, or it doesn't matter, you know what I mean? But we're coming up on a phenomenal time of year right now that there's just so many different species and patterns available at Table Rock at any one given time that, that's what I enjoy more than anything. But I guide on Table Rock, and been doing it for, I guess it's really my second year of doing it. So just kind of pilling around with it. Pete Winters is a great friend of mine. He's a good guy. Brian Snowden, he guides as well. We do a lot of large groups, things of that nature, and we'll all get together but it's fun. We all stay in contact. That's a great idea. Pete actually does a great job of doing a lot of updates of the conditions of the lake and what's going on and how to catch them. And he really that's his full-time position, Pete Winters, and he does a great job. But I think that's a wonderful idea. Just kind of narrows things down for you, quickly.
I've got a pretty good question on here, but before we get to that, Denny, you just come on down and fish the pond. I'll start the barbecue up.
T. Harris says, since Tripp has retired, who will replace him, and do you see any changes?
I don't know who's going to replace Tripp. They have several people that are. I don't know that they're going to replace Tripp in a Elite Series angler only tournament director. It looks as if they are using a group. Lisa Talmadge has kind of taken on the role of senior tournament director. Chris Bowes is still running the opens. He also has helped at some of the elites and done some of that. So I don't know that they're going to replace that position as it was. I don't know that they're not. But there's a lot of guys. Actually, Tripp's son, Hank Weldon, was at this event, so he's helping out too. And I honestly don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't think there is any replacing Tripp Weldon. Yeah. He's doing good, though. He's really in good shape. He was actually fishing the other day. I was talking to Hank and asked about him, and so it looks like everything's good. I think he's 99% sure that he's cancer-free at this point, which is great news. And, I don't know if things are going to change any at all. it seems like things are just, going on a steady path. That whole situation was kind of just, it's running its course. I mean, it's kind of a machine that, the whole format and the elites, they just kind of run themselves. I mean, it's actually a well-oiled machine at this point.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
So Connor's got a good question. Wants to know what your favorite fish to fish for is other than bass.
Other than bass, it's crappie, hands down. Yeah, I love to fish for crappie. Although I'm experimenting with fishing for trout a little bit on Taneycomo.
Oh,
yes, my boy, my brother, right there. He doesn't like.
I've actually had the opportunity to start guiding for trout on Taneycomo, and I'm not sure I'm going to do that yet. But I do like to. I like to eat them. I like to fish for them. There's a ton of them in Taneycomo as well as bass. I mean, there's a lot of largemouth bass, big largemouth bass on Taneycomo. So yeah, but crappie still by far.
You got a world-class trout fishery right there, though. That's a good one. There's some monster browns in there.
The sleeper lake around here is actually Bull Shoals. I only live about 50 minutes from Bull Shoals, and that lake is phenomenal. It's phenomenal because there's not very much boat traffic. The population of all different species is unbelievable in that lake. And we catch some giant walleye out of there, believe it or not. Cool. And I love me some walleye.
So did you know, we just found this out last week. Did you know there's walleye in Kincaid?
Yeah, they're in there. I've caught a 5
I knew there was sauger. I've caught sauger out of Kincaid. I've never caught a walleye out of Kincaid.
Well, that's what
Sean Hurst.
According to Sean Hurst, the biologist over there said, and they actually tried, and you probably heard of this, but they did try an extensive smallmouth stocking program over there at Kincaid, but for some reason they didn't take, and they don't really know why. And Sean says that that's probably the single biggest failure of his career, or the most puzzling mystery of his career. The biggest letdown, basically, is what he said. He tried for years and years and years to get smallmouth going in Kincaid, and it just wouldn't work. I don't know why. Yeah.
It's interesting. The muskie population is so great in Kincaid, and I've heard situations that smallmouth really thrive on, systems that have flowing water. And Kincaid, for the most part, doesn't flow that much. Table Rock obviously generates power, and a lot of those other systems that we fish for, the St. Lawrence River, it flows constantly. So I don't know if there's anything to that's what to do. I don't know if it's the muskie population that ate all of the fry. I don't know. But I know that they tried to get it going on Kincaid, but it's a shame because they sure are blessed. It's funny here at Table Rock, we're getting some 3+ pound smallmouth pretty regular here, and we catch, like, here in the next couple months, we'll catch a lot of smallmouth in the 2.5 to 4 pound range, especially 2.5 to 3s. You'll catch a lot. And it's a lot of fun. They kind of become nomads after that. They get out there and roam around under the bait, and they get a little bit difficult to catch, but one will show up every once in a while. But man, oh man, I mean, when I was at I literally had the time of my life last year when I was at the St. Lawrence River, and we fished Lake Huron. Funny thing, the second day of practice, at the St. Lawrence, we couldn't because of COVID. We had so many restrictions. We had to be tested for COVID, before we could, as soon as we got into the state, we had to be tested. And then, they had to change venue sites because of COVID, going from, where we normally go out of to, oh golly, I'm drawing a blank on the two towns now. But anyway, it allowed them to put Lake Huron into play, and that's where I ended up catching my fish. And it was the last day or second day of practice. It was almost evening time. Up there you can practice for like 16 hours a day. It's exhausting, dude. You can't imagine. like it stays daylight like from 4 o'clock in the morning until like 10 o'clock at night. You're like, oh God, I can't take this anymore, and but you feel obligated to stay out there. And on the second day of practice, I was just idling around. It was like 5 o'clock, and I was like, I got to go in and go to sleep. I am exhausted because the first day I'd put in like 16 hours. And then, of course, I'd been up since 4 o'clock that morning. And I idled across, and I started seeing a few on the side image. And then I seen a few more. And then I seen a few more. And I thought, crap, again, back to that monotony deal. I'm like, I'm just going to turn around and see if these are fish, if they're smallmouth or what they are, And I caught a 4-pounder. And then like 5 consecutive casts, I caught 4-pounders. I'm like, shit, there may be something to this. So I idled around and I messed around a little bit longer. And then Snowden came in. He was doing the same thing. He was going to put it on the trailer. He was done for the day. I was like, hey, Brian, go down there about 200 yards and come back to me. And because we worked together on tour. And I said, see if you, on Livescope, if you start seeing some things and see if you catch any. He called me about 10 minutes. He goes, I've caught 2 4s and a 5 already. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought. And so we found a stretch that was gigantic. And then so the next morning, rather than bailing on the whole deal, we expanded on it. And we both did really well in the tournament. So it's just kind of funny how things work out. But yeah, those smallmouth, they're unreal. And when they're 4 and 5 pounds, jeez.
Yeah.
And in current, it's unreal. It really is.
Yeah. Cody wants to know how to maybe get signed up for you on guiding on the lake.
Well, you can either email me at chadmorgenthaler.com, or you can send me a personal message at CC Morgenthaler on Instagram or Facebook. Either way, Chad Morgenthaler on Facebook, CC Morgenthaler on Twitter or Instagram. And, man, I'd be glad to accommodate you however I can.
That's great.
Mike Russell's got a good question on here. Just throw it out. Mike, hands down, man, your crankbait that you left for Gabe and I, it sealed the deal this weekend, I can tell you.
He's a bait painter, Back 5 Baits out of Kentucky Lake.
Unbelievable paint jobs. Holy cow.
So he wants to know, how do you or can you identify a location that fish are going to use to stage before going to the lake? And then what type of structure would you look for on a map? So let's kind of roll that into current situation. It's pre-spawn right now. The spawner, the fish are moving towards their spawning locations. So maybe apply that question to what's currently going on.
Okay, so we kind of touched on this earlier. The obvious places that are on the topo maps and that are on your electronic maps that we have today, which are spot on. Some of them will be spot on, some of them won't. But what I mean by that is some of them will work. Some of them will be close, but the fish will be off of them. And so what I have found is that the obvious places aren't so obvious anymore. And it's you can get a good idea of where they should be. Creek channel swings, secondary points, little kickouts, things of that nature. And you should look at those, all of them. And you should pay really close attention to what's within 300 or 400 yards of that area. So, if you have a secondary point that the fish are going to stop on the way in and on the way out, that say, hey, they should be right here coming in. They should be right here going out. So just like I said, just really, really put a lot of time in that area. What I have learned over the years is that they aren't as quick as so like you can catch fish doing a lot of different things. Don't take this to the bank as the golden rule by any means. But what I can tell you is not all fish spawn at the same time. It could be delayed for as much as 2 to 3 months, depending on the area of the nation that you're in. Even more so in Florida, there are fish that start spawning around Thanksgiving, and they'll still be going through April. Okay, so there's a giant time frame there that fish could be spawning at. So you constantly have that wave coming in and out. And I think that occurs more across the nation than what we actually realize. They don't all go at the same time. You just have waves. Everybody talks about waves of fish coming in, waves of fish going out. And that's why we can catch fish out off of main lake points, and at the same time catch them on the last creek channel swings in the back of the coves, all within the same day. And I think that's why that occurs, because all fish are different. Here on Table Rock, there are some fish that I've seen on the bed at as early as 55 degrees. And that's I thought that was unheard of until I experienced it. And then, I've also seen them on the bed with it 80 degrees. So you just have to take it all in perspective. And there's no go here during this time frame, go here during that time frame. Keep an open mind, fish the conditions. I hope this kind of addresses the question that you've asked, but more than anything, because of our mapping technology and because of what's out there today, especially the stuff that we are able to display with our GPS units and our chart plotters, we have changed the advance in electronics and the amount of people that have them. So 2 years ago, say there were 1,000 people that had Panoptics. Now there are 10,000 people that have Panoptics. We actually have, I believe, changed the fish and their patterns because of that. We can see them, we fish for them, we pressure them, they move to survive. And that's the whole key is they're still fish. They still have to bite. They still have to react, but they're going deeper. They're going to places that they've never been before. They have routes and they travel more. And I honestly believe that fishing the current conditions day by day by day and not ruling anything out is your best. It's your best area of defense. I really truly believe that.
That's interesting. So you would definitely say that Livescope has caused the patterns of fish to change. I mean, not all of them, of course, but that has had an effect on the fish.
There's no question in my mind there's absolutely no doubt. But before that was side image and down image. And so, we started finding all the structure, all the brush problems. We could see fish better. And, the advancements of technology, it has allowed us to be able to actually see fish and or structure better. And so it's just easier to stop on it, with the mapping. So, yeah, no doubt. And now we have forward-looking sonar. So we're no longer fishing in the past. We're fishing in the future. We're fishing in what's coming up. We're not fishing what's already been. That sounds maybe far out there, but I'm telling you, it's really not. We talk about that on the Elite Series a lot. Being able to see and react, we can change now because we see how the fish is reacting to our presentation. We can now change before we ever cover that fish up or pass it by. So all that has to be taken in consideration.
It's like, you mentioned trout fishing in Tenicomo, and typically you're fishing for trout in really clear water. And a lot of times you're sight fishing. And you can see a bait, you cast a bait to that fish. I fly fish a lot. So I'll tie a certain fly on and I see a couple fish and I'll let that fly drift through the fish. And I can tell, did they move up to it? Did they just move out of the way and let it fly, go by? Or did some other fish move up into that area and they got a little bit more aggressive and then they responded to that fly? Or did they just totally not pay attention to it? And then you can change flies. You can try something else. And you can keep changing flies as long as you have patience. And usually, you could throw color changes in there too, but usually you'll get some kind of interest out of those fish. And so to me, I'm kind of envisioning Livescope as a similar to that in a way. You're not actually looking at them in the water, but you're looking at them on the screen. And as you throw a red jerk bait, then you throw an orange jerk bait, and then you twitch it, your cadence changes, you're trying to get a strike or reaction. And eventually, if you have the patience and those fish stay put, you can keep rotating through baits and colors and finding something that they'll react to. And that's amazing. I mean, I obviously I don't have the Livescope yet, but I've done a lot of research on it, and I hear people talking about how nice it is to have a tool that, because if you can't see those fish, you don't even really know that a fish was following your jerkbait. If you just got side scan, you mark it, you scan a point, maybe you see some fish there, maybe you're fishing outside grass line, you just know it's an area, it's a secondary point, it's that time of year, and you're fishing a jerkbait. You don't know that a fish came up to it and was just about to hit it, but you didn't jerk it the right, your cadence was off, your color was off. You have no idea, but with Livescope, you can see all that happening. So I can see how that would pressure the fish even more.
It happens all the time. We talk to so many guys that are glued to that thing at this point that it's unreal, how color change or cadence change it will cause them to react. I mean, you can watch, if you don't believe me, go back and watch Patrick Walters at Lake Fork and how he was glued to that thing, and how he was watching and how he dialed in on the color and the jerk bait and the size and everything that was working the best, and how he blew the field away doing it. It's amazing. I didn't realize until I moved to Table Rock and I got Livescope so when we're in the wintertime, we fish, a lot of A-rig stuff, and we're fishing 30 to 50 foot deep, trees, things of that nature. I didn't realize, at that depth range, you're dealing with water temperature in the 40s, typically, and you can deal with surface temperatures in the 30s. How fast those fish actually move until you see it happening. It's just, it's mind blowing what we've learned from that, how they move, the structure that's available that they use, how they move off of, points or banks or structures that we normally have caught them on, how they've moved just a couple hundred yards to a tree or something out there that's suspended, or a bait ball that you never knew existed until you could swing that thing out and take a look now. And it's eye-opening. It really is. Just keep an open mind, because I don't know where we're going to go with this stuff. I have a pretty good idea of some of the new technology that's coming on. I think that very soon we're dealing with not only fish identification and species identification and separation, but we're also dealing with more of a forward Livescope image that is real time, that looks like down inside image rather than 2D sonar. At this point, it's getting close now, but I don't think we're far from that. I don't know where it's all going to go. All I know is we just have to keep adapting and keep changing and keep an open mind and just keep fishing and time on the water. And like I said, experiencing all these different things and conditions. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's cool. I think the resolution is going to definitely continue to get better and better. We got a few more questions. I'd like to touch just a little bit on Table Rock before we let you go, and then maybe just
Jay was asking about, he's got a big tournament coming up for pre-spawn and spawning smallmouth. Would you use the same principle for targeting the largemouth?
So, pre-spawn.
So I guess he's meaning, would you use the same principles for smallmouth as you would for largemouth?
So technically, yeah. I mean, yeah, in a large realm, yes. They're going to be shallower. The smallmouth will typically spawn quicker than largemouth. So, the water temperature is cooler. You got to realize, okay, so if a largemouth, atypical, let's say a largemouth spawns at 65-degree water temperature, the smallmouth may spawn at 60. And they'll be just a little bit deeper on the average. And as the time frame goes on, they'll continue to move deeper and deeper yet. So you're going to be dealing with a situation where the smallmouth are definitely shallower than they normally live. With that being said, you're still going to catch smallmouth on a lot of the same lures, jigs, Cincos, wobbleheads, things of that nature. I mean, it's just that's going to be. But yes, you can think of them, although you have to think of the lake and take it apart a little bit differently. So the smallmouth are going to spawn on hard objects, period, and not so much stumps, laydowns, laid over grass, gator vines, stuff of that nature. They're going to spawn on those gravelly spots, the rocks, things of that nature. So just stay around those type of situations, and that's what they're going to be. They're going to move on to those. They're going to move into those areas when they're ready to spawn. Other than that, they're just going to be up there shallow feeding until that point. They don't spend weeks in shallow backwater areas like largemouth do. Excuse me. They go spawn and get out, and the males will stay there, but the females go spawn and get out, and they typically don't go as far back, if that makes sense. Largemouth just get a little bit shallower. They'll go a little bit farther back, and the creeks and smallmouth typically do. Smallmouth will typically stay a little bit more so toward the deeper water, the main lake areas, and the gravelly hard stuff. So that's really the adjustment you have to make.
Scott wants to know, what trailer would you use on a peewee jig?
If that is the Scotty Edwards that I have known for a long time.
I bet it is.
I'll bet it is too. Scotty, you know what trailer to use on a peewee jig. And although I guess for years and years and years, we used the Uncle Josh number 11.
Oh yeah.
Frog, but now it's pretty much soft plastic deals. Although I guess Uncle Josh still has some stuff going on out there, but yeah,
I think.
It's the same. It's the same stuff. The Zoom Super Chunk Junior, and it's pretty much the Zoom Super Chunk Junior is what I use what I would use on the peewee jig.
There you go. Some inside information.
So you got some stuff on Table Rock you want to go over? I was looking through yours.
Oh yeah. Okay, so real quick on Table Rock, what's going on there right now? Like what phase are the fish in, or is it still really early pre-spawn, or are you seeing them starting to move into their pre-spawn locations?
Yeah, they are definitely starting to move into their pre-spawn locations. There's a lot of fish shallow right now. I say shallow, relatively speaking. There's the wiggle wart bite is wide open right now. The rock crawler bite is wide open right now. But there still is some fish that are out. Like I said, all waves don't come at the same time. There's still some fish on brush. There's still some fish in trees. You can catch them on swim baits, A-rigs, things of that nature. But it's starting to go down. The water temperature's starting to get into the high 50s. It jumped a little bit, which is shoving them to the bank just a little bit earlier, and it's getting dirtier because of the rain that we had. So when it jumped because of the rain, and now that the dirtier water is getting toward the lower end of the lake, you can't count anything out. I mean, you can catch them up the wide, you can catch them up the James, you can catch them on the lower end. It don't matter. It's all the same, really, and it's a lot of the same water color and temperature. So, they're basically, in a nutshell, they're just getting shallower right now. They're really vulnerable. There's a lot of fish coming to the bank, and they're getting in that, 5 to 10 foot range, which is where they're going to live until they spawn.
Okay. So I got a BFL down there the 17th of April. You think that'll be, I mean, I know depending on the conditions, but at
that point, there'll be even more and more and more shallow at that point. Yeah. There's no sense to fish deeper than 10 foot at that point. No sense. You will get your brains beat out if you do. It's just a matter of then determining, what's going to be the best method to catch them at that point. Jigs, Cincos, shaky heads, even crankbaits still be. I wouldn't be surprised if a swim bait doesn't come along at that, or I'm sorry, a buzz bait doesn't come along at that time. It's going to be, how do I generate that big couple of bites is what it's going to be at that point. There's going to be so many fish 10 foot or less. It's going to be ugly.
I like that, because the last BFL I fished was in February of last year when I drew Pete Winters, and he was live scoping those treetops in about 40 foot of water for those spots with an A-rig.
Yep.
And I ended up losing I think I lost all the A rigs I had because he kind of hung me out to dry on the back of the boat. So I like the idea of fishing 10-foot or shallow. That sounds great to me. Looking forward to that. We had something else in there. Scott, somebody was wanting to know if they still make the Pee-wee jigs.
Yep, he was asked, or Scott Edwards answered him, said yes, they do.
Okay. And then Connor wants to know what is your favorite lake at Pyramid? You ever fish the Pyramid strip pits up there? They're in it's in Pickneyville. I guess you have.
Yeah, I have fished some of them, not to a great extent. I really don't have a favorite lake at Pyramid, one versus the other. I honestly have been out of the game in that area of the nation so long. I can't answer that question.
When's the last time you fished crab?
Oh my goodness. Well, the last time I fished crab was
He needs to make a road trip.
It's maybe been 6, 7, 8. It was the Southern Illinois Hunting and Fishing Days tournament that I won. That was the last time I fished crab orchard.
Okay. You left on a good note then.
Yeah, left on a good note. Hey, leave while you're ahead, I say.
Yeah, amen, bro.
Did you hear they pulled 11 pounder out of there last year?
2 years ago.
Or 2 years ago.
Yeah, they pulled an 11 out there. Yeah,
Yeah.
every once in a while there's just some beast that grows in there. What was your favorite lake out there in Illinois, in Southern Illinois? Did you have one?
Oh, it was crab orchard. There's no doubt. I mean, I fished crab orchard in the days where if you didn't have over 20, don't even come. It wasn't even no sense. I mean, that's the days that I started fishing crab orchard. It was crazy good. Yeah, it was crab orchard by far. Now, I got to once I left there and I started fishing professionally, and then I learned how to fish Florida. Kincaid became a pretty awesome lake for a few years there because there wasn't a whole lot of people at that point punching, and there was a couple of tournaments there that I had that to myself, and that was pretty fun. But then it was game on. So, but Kincaid's still really good too, though. I mean, I like it because it's got so much milfoil in it. I mean, that's
yeah. Are there any lakes that you fished out on tour that remind you of some of the lakes in Southern Illinois? Like
there are a few. There are a few. But I mean, obviously I fished Galconda a lot, Smithland Pool, but the river systems are a little different. But I mean, there's a few. Smith Lake in Alabama, remind me a little bit of Grassy, just a little bit. And then, but for the most part, I mean, like I said, Wren Lake, Crab Orchard, Kincaid, the real shallow water lakes, they're different. They're different than anything that I experienced for the most part.
There's probably maybe sections of a bigger lake where you pull into a cove and you're like, oh, this reminds me of such and such lake or something.
The way that I look back on the way that I used to pre-fish like a Crab Orchard and Kincaid and how that we go now. And a lot of times I have to slow myself down and I look back to my grassroots and I go, now it's nothing for us to light out and run 30, 40 miles out of the gate. I mean, just nothing. Yeah, that's just like, okay, we know we got to go here. Let's go check this out. Whereas before you just didn't spend much time. You just didn't have that option to run or to that size of a venue. But it's just different now than what it was before. But like I said, there's a lot of it though. Every once in a while I'll say, hey, let's just hunker down right here close and let's just grind it out. And that's worked. So
I remember I was fishing the LBL division, so Kentucky Lake in the BFLs for several years. And one of the first couple tournaments I was in as a co-angler, my boater, when I was talking to him, I said, so what's kind of the plan or where are we running at and stuff? And he said, we're fishing Tennessee. We're going to Tennessee. We're going to south of Paris, Tennessee. And we were up at the dam. And I'm like, how long is that? And he's like, that's going to be about a 40-minute ride. And I'm thinking, so we're going to drive for 40 minutes, before we even fish.
Mhm.
A long run to me was like 10 minutes or something, 10,
Right,
15
right.
minutes. But those guys go all the way to New Johnsonville. You stop at Paris to get gas on the way back so you can make it back to the boat ramp. So that kind of opened me up on the long run.
In 2003, when I fished my first classic in New Orleans, we lived out of Bayou Signet, and I ran 127 miles one way.
Holy cow.
Jesus.
That's the farthest I've ever gone. It still is today the farthest I've ever gone. Yeah.
Oh, I bet your back felt really good after all that.
Oh my God, it was horrible.
And
the way you had to get there was even worse. Trust me on that. Yep.
So that's crazy because you're all jacked up in the morning, man. You're jacked up, you're ready to go fishing, and 2 hours later you sit down the boat and you're just like, God, you'd have to really, work it up again.
Yep.
Be a little rough, that's for sure.
Well, before we let you go, I brought a couple baits that I want to just show these to you. And I think these are a couple missile products that I really like, and I think not a lot of people are fishing them, or not as many. I mean, everybody knows the D-bomb, right? I mean, Greg's a huge D-bomb. Yeah, you never heard of him. Greg's a huge D-bomb fan. So am I. But I think one of the baits that's kind of overlooked is the Destroyer.
Yep.
And yeah. Now this is let's show this. A buddy of mine turned me onto this at Chickamauga. He was punching grass. We were fishing a regional down there. And he said, keep this on the hush, man. But before you come down here, get on Tackle Warehouse and order some of these Destroyers. And Bruiser Flash was the color that he recommended. It's a killer color. But this bait right here it's got a really big profile. It's kind of like a slimmer D-bomb up here, but it's got these really long kind of brush hoggy type legs. And it's just got a really big presence in the water. And if you have not tried these, check them out. Cause I think it's kind of to me, I don't hear people talking about it. It's a little bit of a kind of a sleeper bait, and they make it in the baby Destroyer too, which is excellent on a Carolina rig. I like to throw when the bite's finicky and they don't want something big, they don't want a full size bait, that baby Destroyer. So here's the regular size, and then
I use the baby for punching,
and then there's the baby. Same thing for punching. If you want that finesse, I use a speed crawl a lot, but this right here will work in the same type of scenario. So 2 different sizes. The Destroyer, I think it's overlooked, and I think you guys should check it out. And then the one other bait I wanted to show real quick is a bait that's just been out probably last year, and it's the Quiver. It's the missile bait's Quiver, the 6.5, which this is a really cool bait. Like the Neko rig, something like that. Texas rig, wacky rig. I think it's called Neko.
Neko. I don't know.
It's Japanese, so it's not pronounced the way we think it is. It's always something different.
I don't get into the finesse game, so
have you fished, Chad? Have you had a chance to mess around with the Quiver 6.5 at all?
A lot.
So tell me about it. What are you?
He looks a little disgruntled that you're showing all this off. But.
Dude, so I fished before the Quiver came out. The Yamamoto their cut-tail worm was very similar, but the Quiver, for whatever reason, seems to generate more bites. And I got the Quiver straight out of the mold on the prototype for St. John's a couple of years ago, and John gave those to me, and it's a catcher. I mean, it don't matter if you fish it on the Neko rig or wacky style, or I fish it a lot Texas style in the place of Cinco. I actually haven't flipped or pitched a Cinco in probably 2 years because of the Quiver. So yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of experience with it. It definitely works on it's a shaky head bite getting machine. That thing is. You put it on a 3/16 ounce shaky head, and I'm telling you, you better hang on. Me and Mansu did a video post here last year, I think, with a 6.5-inch quiver on Table Rock, and we were catching bedfish on it, and literally they bite that over anything else. So yeah, I mean, great baits. It's just got a great profile. It's got that straight tail on it, and I really like it. I really do. I've got a boatload of them, and they work.
You should probably just take that camera and go over to that little room and let's see. I don't believe you.
Not gonna happen.
No, good on it.
I just never trust a guy to stick his finger in his hand in front of my face and smell it.
That was my next question about Table Rock. So I need to be taking some of those down there when I fish that BFL.
You throw that on a shaky head. If you don't catch 5, you might as well go ahead and go to the grocery store, bag groceries for a living, my friend. Not that that's a bad gig, but I'm telling you, they'll bite that thing. They will.
I will have it on. I will have it tied on. Most definitely. All right. If you guys got any more questions for Chad, he's been nice enough to be on here for almost 2 hours. It just goes by quick when you get to talking fishing and stuff and having a good time.
It does.
You see me?
No, I was looking through these earlier.
Yeah. So what do you got? What's coming up next, Chad? Where's the next derby at?
So I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna leave the middle of next week, and I'm gonna go practice for the Classic on Ray Roberts for a few days before it goes off limits. It goes off limits on April the 1st, and so I'm gonna go look at it. I've only been on Ray Roberts maybe one time in my entire life, and it's gonna be in June, so it's gonna be hard to look around. But I'm just gonna kind of learn my way around it, see what's got to offer for a few days, and then I'm gonna head on to the Sabine, and then I'll come back for a week and go to Fork.
Okay.
Sounds terrible.
I do have 2 events. We're going to fish a little derby here on Table Rock on Wednesday. I haven't been on the water, but I'm fishing with my neighbor, my good friend Dave Mansu, and then I've got a tournament on the lake. Actually, I got a tournament on the Lake of the Ozarks on Saturday. So yeah,
next Saturday.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, good luck. I know they had that.
Which area? I'll say which area you guys fishing? You guys farther south or north on
where's that? On which lake?
Lake of the Ozarks.
PB2.
I don't know yet. We're going to go down on Friday and give it 1 day of practice. Dave was there for a BFL a couple weeks ago, and he fished up. So that'll be our fallback. We'll probably fish the lower end for the most part on Friday and see what happens and just go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I know they had that the jerkbait only tournament. I believe it was last week. And it took 20 pounds, I believe, to win.
Really? I've heard it's pretty good. So
yeah.
I've heard Kentucky Lake's been fishing pretty good too. So I'm anxious to get down there.
Wow. Nice. That's good to hear.
Yeah, that is really good news because Kentucky Lake has been really struggling the last 3 or 4 years. That's kind of why I quit fishing the BFLs down there, because it just got really tough just to get a bite. But it's according to the first BFL they had down there were a lot of limits brought in. It used to be somebody would catch 20, somebody would catch 19 and 18, and then boom, it dropped down to like 12. But now there's a nice gradual curve of bags, which tells me there's a lot of 15 to 16-inch fish in the system. So it seems like it's starting to come back. So that's a good thing. But Chad, we're gonna let you go, man. I really appreciate you hanging out with us. It's been great to get to know you, and good luck out there on the water, man. I hope you get everything works out the way you want. I hope your second day on Pickwick becomes your first and second and third and fourth day out there on the tour.
Thanks so much. I appreciate all you guys. Thanks for having me on the show. I always love to talk fishing with everybody. And like I said, it's just an honor and a privilege to be here and to get to talk with everybody, and I hope that nobody thinks that I've ever forgot where I come from, my grassroots, because that's what got me to where I am today. And I got a lot of mountains to climb still, but man, good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, we're going to have a lot of good days and a lot more tournaments in our future. And, fishing's fishing. Sometimes you have good days, sometimes you have bad days, and hopefully you learn a lesson from all of them, which I certainly try to do. And if I can ever reach out and help any of you out there, I'll be more than happy to do so. And if you get in the area, please look me up and give a shout out. And it's been great getting to talk with everybody.
Yep. Well, the next time your buddies come over and decide to stay at your house for a day or two, let us know. We'll make sure we give them an invite. We're going to get them in that room over there, sooner or later.
So the last time we did it, I had to do I did a podcast, and we were up for 4 hours. We were up to almost midnight doing the podcast when everybody was. So it was definitely. But I'll keep you in mind, and we'll hopefully get to do it again sometime soon.
Okay, right. Sounds good, Chad. Right. Have a good evening and appreciate it once again.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you, buddy. All right. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. I love having
a lot of good comments coming through too.
Yeah, I love having people that were born or grew up in the area that we live in, and they've came out and made a career out of it. It's really cool. To me, it's really cool to hear. Well, even we had, Chad tonight and Menendez and even Terry Bolton. They talk about fishing Lake of Egypt. They talk about fishing wren and crab. They've all fished Kincaid. And you're like, what? You fish the same lakes that we do? And they're like, yeah, we're just fishermen.
It's just odd to hear somebody talk good about crab anymore. They're like, oh, my God.
It's hit and miss, man.
It kicks my ass so bad.
You just got to get over there more. I need to
get that's over the problem. More. Yeah. Well, by the time we fish it, it's so late in the summer that
it's been beat up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guarantee you could go over there. And then if you went over there 4 or 5 times in the next couple of weeks, you'd probably have some phenomenal days. You'd see, just like any lake in the spring, that's when you get to see what's really in the lake. But, man, thanks for everybody that's been on here. I hope you enjoyed that stream. Working on a guest for next weekend. We got 2 really. I'm not going to announce them now until I get them finalized. But we got 2 more really good.
One's going to be extremely interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be. If it all lines out, it's going to be pretty cool. I'm excited. I'm just fine tuning everything.
We have to turn the speakers down a little bit, and
it could get rowdy. Yeah, it could get rowdy. Let's just. I'm not going to say anything else about it, but.
It may be
it'll be fun.
I may skip the water next week and go straight to the
vodka.
The Crown and no vodka. I'll stick with my Crown and 7-Up.
But yeah, thanks for everybody that got on here. And just a reminder, if you guys want to check out, I know I brought this up earlier, but Thursday night, 7:30 Central, me and Rhonda Rosa will be doing a live stream, and we will be talking local fishing reports. It's going to be fishing reports live. I don't know exactly what name we're going to stick with or whatever. If you guys got any
potato juice,
potato juice.
Yeah, he's talking about my Crown and 7-Up.
I don't know exactly, what the name is going to be, but basically the premises is just trying to create a community where we're talking about local fishing reports, and the more people that get on there and share their weekly adventures, the better it will be, and the more people will catch more fish.
Philip, I do not know as of right now, actually, which is really odd for me to say this time of year, but I guarantee you probably one evening this week, if not early this weekend, I will be going to Perry County. And just hit me up on Facebook or something, and I'll shoot you a message back and let you know.
Rum and DP, you know what? We might have to get a Minnesota fishing report too. I mean, the whole country.
Froze.
It's froze.
It's froze.
Yeah. Tom says his biggest tournament fish came out of crab, a 6'4", 20-inch. Dang, that was a big one.
Yeah.
Like puffed up. It's a nice one. I think you know what? Actually, one of the biggest fish I've caught, I don't know, probably it's hard to say. I never weigh fish. I caught a big one in Crab Orchard though. I actually got a video. It's right when I very first started. I caught one.
Well, I told you, but that's where I missed probably the biggest fish I've ever seen.
There's some big ones swimming.
Well, I didn't miss him. He missed me completely. It was a stupid thing that went like 6 inches behind my frog, and I'm like looking at him going, what the hell just happened? My wife was even there. I was like,
they do that, man. I was over there fishing that cell. what's the when you leave the West End boat ramp, you come out and you go in. I think it's that first long
The
cove. It's
little
got the docks and
sailboats
stuff.
and everything?
Yeah, I was fishing that back on the right hand side, and I was with my buddy Jerry, and I hooked up. I was fishing a little speed crawl of 1/4 ounce weight. The fish was. I think there were still some fish on beds. It was kind of over with, but there were still some of those spawners up there, and I hooked up with one that was probably 7-ish. I don't know. I didn't weigh it, but
Yeah.
there are
My biggest
definitely
one's out
some
of
big
Egypt,
fish.
So
Yeah, you caught a couple 7s last year. You caught 3
3.
7s. They were all 7.3 too, weren't they?
no, 7.2s and 7.3s.
Okay. I
think
knew
2 7.2s and 1 7.3.
Okay, Hellabass says the opener isn't until mid-May,
Mid-May.
except for the border waters. So you can't technically fish for bass, I guess.
Yeah.
But if a bass
I'd put a timer out there for
accidentally grabs your whopper plopper when you're fishing for crappie,
7.13 at Perry.
that's a big one.
Yep. Philip, like I said, message me on Facebook, and I will send you a picture of my nephews out of Perry County. It will make you sick. And then I'll tell you the story behind it that made me sick.
Jay Bethel. If you get your boy Mike Russell on it, we might be able to have KBD on here. I don't know.
Yeah, no kidding.
We're working there. We're working up to it.
Dude gave me a couple of crankbaits. I've been killing them on here lately, and I gave him a little love on Facebook and Instagram and some other stuff. So,
Yep.
they
Good
work,
stuff, man.
So,
All right, let's get off here.
Yep.
Okay.
See everybody next Monday.
Peace.